18 hours in the air, all in darkness. Today, I'm taking on the 5th longest flight in the world, an 18-hour journey across the Pacific, flying from Dallas-Fort Worth all the way to Melbourne. So how does Qantas Business Class hold up on a flight this extreme? Let's find out. And yes, stick around for another amenity kit giveaway. Today's trip begins at Dallas-Fort Worth, a major American Airlines hub in Texas. I arrived here on a connecting American Airlines flight with my bags already checked through, which gave me a bit of time to explore the airport. All of the terminals at this airport are connected by the Skylink train, and Qantas flights depart from Terminal D. From the Skylink, I got a glimpse of the 2 Qantas aircraft that regularly serve this airport. Apart from my flight that's operated by the 787, there is also the A380 that runs the shorter QF8 service to Sydney. Terminal D is also home to our lounge provided for today's flight. Qantas doesn't operate its own lounge in Dallas, so eligible passengers are instead directed to the American Airlines lounge, specifically the Flagship version.
Good afternoon, welcome in.
On arrival, guests are welcomed with a glass of champagne, a nice touch, and probably the only thing that feels truly flagship about this experience. The lounge itself is certainly spacious and offers runway views on one side, but it was quite busy at the time. The food selection was solid without being extraordinary. Rather than lingering in the crowded lounge any further, I hopped back on the SkyTrain to take a tour and soak in the sweeping views of the airside as the sun dipped towards the horizon. American Airlines completely dominates the scene at this airport. If I was another airline operating here, I must feel a bit intimidated. Thankfully, our aircraft today, this Qantas 787, is a close ally of American Airlines, so it probably feels right at home here. I made it to the gate just as boarding began, and I couldn't help but feel a little claustrophobic thinking about the next 18 hours ahead. This is not going to be fun. Now, Qantas has 14 787-9s in their fleet, with 4 more on order. These aircraft are the core of the Qantas ultra-long-haul fleet, operating some of the longest routes in the world, including this one and Perth to London. As such, they are premium heavy and fitted with 42 business class seats, 28 premium economy, and 166 economy class seats. The arrangement in business is a staggered 1-to-1 layout with direct aisle access for each seat. I was supposed to fly this in premium economy, but thankfully a classic upgrade request came through one day before the flight. There was a sense of familiarity on board, as these are the same seats that Qantas uses across much of its wide-body fleet. It is a fully lie-flat arrangement in a staggered layout, alternating between seats that are closer to the window and those that are closer to the aisle. I was seated in the bulkhead row of the second mini cabin, which felt nicely tucked away.
With the service through to Melbourne this evening, we'd also like to welcome back our Qantas American Airlines and One World frequent flyers.
One interesting difference on the 787 is the additional storage compartment located just beneath the screen, something I haven't seen on the A330s or the A380s. Beyond that, you have all the usuals, like the touchscreen and a side storage cabinet that includes the AC power socket, USB ports, and a headphone jack, all within easy reach. As for amenities, waiting at the seat was a pillow, a comforter, and a mattress pad for sleeping, and of course a set of Qantas pyjamas. There is also this amenity kit featuring Lithia amenities, which I'll be giving away at the end of this video. Shortly, we pushed back and began our taxi out for departure.
My name is Short Captain Elder, as well as Second Officers Joseph Lesage and Jackie Bunworth. We'd all like to welcome you on board. The upside is it's a relatively quick flight time through to Melbourne, 16 hours and 50 minutes. And I should please settle back and enjoy the Qantas flight service.
Despite how busy Dallas-Fort Worth can be, the taxi itself was surprisingly quick with no delays at all. Before long, we were lined up on runway 18R, officially beginning our ultra-long-haul journey across the Pacific to Melbourne. Today's flight time was thankfully on the shorter side for this route, coming in at around 16 hours and 30 minutes, thanks to some favorable tailwinds. With such a long flight ahead, it was time to start strategizing. But first, a quick change into the pyjamas. One slightly annoying thing with Qantas is that they only offer pyjamas in large and extra large sizes. Both are pretty oversized for me, but to be fair, they're still comfortable enough for an overnight flight like this. While I was up, I also took the opportunity to check out the lavatory. It's fairly standard, nothing that really screams business class. Apart from maybe these couple of amenities from Lithia, which are the same products you'll find in the amenity kit. This flight departs in the evening and spends its entire journey in darkness before landing in Melbourne at 5 AM 2 days later. That makes this window dimmer the most coolest but useless thing about this flight today. There are 3 meal services planned on board, and here's a look at the menu. You've got an initial dinner service after takeoff, a mid-flight service, and then an optional breakfast before landing, which you can pre-select ahead of time. As for my plan, the goal was to have dinner and stay awake until 8 PM Melbourne time, roughly 7 hours into the flight, and then try to sleep the remainder of the journey, hopefully making the adjustment a little easier on arrival. The dinner service began an hour after takeoff, and here's a look at the menu, which offered 6 main course options, including a couple of vegetarian choices and a salad. Somewhat surprisingly, there wasn't a formal starter, just a serving of warm nuts to begin with, along with a choice of a drink. The crew also did a great job setting up the table with attentive service throughout. They even noticed a small spot on my tray table and cleaned it up instantly without any hesitation.
Still is fine. Still? Yeah, let me just claim that they didn't do a very good job out of.
Qantas really has good people and great customer service on board. But the food itself, it was okay. For the mains, I went for the halibut. It was served with roasted potatoes, olives, and a light sauce, and presentation-wise, it looked perfectly fine. The fish was, however, a little on the dry side, and the olives tended to overpower the rest of the dish. To be honest, I've rarely been blown away by Qantas onboard catering, and this felt pretty par for the course. Not bad, but not particularly memorable either.
I have spoons. That's what I was trying to work out. Like, has he got his spoon? I'll go and get him one. That's fine, thank you.
Dessert, however, was a different story. A lime panna cotta with almond crumble followed, and this was easily the highlight of the entire meal. Light, refreshing, and well balanced, it was the one part of the dinner I genuinely enjoyed. After the meal service, my flight plan failed spectacularly as I fell asleep almost immediately. Thankfully though, it was just a short nap and I still had time to resurrect my original plan. I'm going to put this one on Qantas as they still don't offer Wi-Fi on their international fleet.
Oh, come on!
That would have kept me scrolling for hours. That meant relying on the TV screen to keep myself entertained. It is not cutting edge, but it does do the job, and the content selection on Qantas lines is generally pretty solid. The crew for their part clearly understood my mission to stay awake as long as possible and did their best to help. They regularly came around and offered movie snacks like chips and nuts, which definitely helped. Later in the flight, I wandered to the galley to track down the source of these snacks and help myself to a few more. Plenty of tea also played its part in keeping me awake, at least for a little while longer. I managed to stay awake for the mid-flight snack service and went with the poached chicken sandwich. Again, nothing particularly memorable for business class, but it does the job. And then, finally, it was time to get some proper rest. The provided mattress pad sits over the seat and made for a comfortable sleeping setup. The seat itself is reasonably wide, although it does have a slight downward slope. That said, it didn't really impact my rest, and I managed a solid 7 hours of sleep. It was a bit of a mad rush waking up with just 45 minutes to go, and realizing that I've skipped an entire day in my life thanks to time zones. For breakfast, I wasn't particularly hungry. It was 4 AM and I had already made the most of the earlier meal services. I went with just a tray that included a muffin, yogurt, and tea. This is the full breakfast options that were offered.
This stage, we should be there around about 10 minutes ahead of schedule, just can you stop 10 minutes to 5. On behalf of the entire crew, it's been a pleasure having you with us today. We do thank you for choosing to fly with Qantas and hope you have enjoyed the journey. Thank you.
Overall, I would say this flight actually went surprisingly quickly, considering just how long it is. The Qantas Business Class seat is still quite comfortable, even if the design is starting to show its age. The in-flight entertainment had a solid selection of movies, and the cabin crew was excellent, proactive, attentive, and genuinely helpful throughout the flight. The food, on the other hand, at least from the menu, was average, but that's pretty consistent with my experiences on Qantas. And the lack of Wi-Fi is definitely frustrating, especially on a flight of this length. So would I fly this ultra-long haul route again? Probably, but only if in a premium cabin. Otherwise, I would personally prefer breaking up the journey into shorter segments. But that's just me. To enter the amenity kit giveaway, leave a comment below telling me whether you would fly an 18-hour non-stop flight like this, or if you'd rather break the journey up and why.
On behalf of Qantas and oneworld, we do thank you for choosing to fly with us today. We do realize you had a choice. It's our pleasure to have brought you through to Melbourne today.